Hello, welcome everyone back to Locked In. My name is Megan Holden,
I'm Sam Rodriguez.
and today we'll be talking about what's going on in the world, outside world, in the news, in sports, and how they're related to each other.
A man named George Floyd was forcibly detained by the police officers, and they forced him to the ground with their knee on his throat, and he screamed for about 9 minutes saying, "I can't breathe, this hurts," and ended up passing away. This is just one case of the many cases of police brutality that occur in this country daily.
And as a result, there's been protests not just in the nation, but across the world, calling for action and change, including the sports world, and especially for the arrest of the 4 officers who killed George Floyd. Going on with the news, some of the under-the-radar news for the NBA.
So according to former executive John Hollinger, he has inside info that the 76ers might be pursuing a trade for Harrison Barnes in relation to giving away Al Horford. And then you also have Isaiah Thomas in talks to return to the Celtics next season. Says he wants to come back because he liked it there the most and the system fit him well. And then lastly,
I would love that if you come back this season. We need.
he fit in well. He fit in well. He fit in well there. That's where he shined the most, really.
The system fits for him, definitely.
Yep. And then lastly, the Trailblazers are trying to pursue either Dwight Howard or JaVale McGee next season to back up Joseph Nurkic because they do not believe Hassan Whiteside will be returning to the team, which seems kind of fair because he wants a monster contract when he doesn't deserve it. So there's that. And then to Megan with some inside NFL news.
Thank you. And for the NFL, some of the news for this week is NFL virtual owners meeting happened, and they voted to eliminate the loophole of teams manipulating the game clock with dead ball fouls, something we saw with the Titans and the Patriots last season. And they also upped the return for teams' injured reserves, has gone up from 2 players to 3. Also in the news is NFL Commissioner Rob Delaleu says the current plan is to still start on time for the start of the season, but we'll make adjustments if needed. And as a result of that, virtual offseason has extended 2 weeks, and teams are now have to conduct training camps on their own facilities and not be able to participate together like some teams connect and do training camp together, or some teams like Dallas goes to California. Some free agency news. Panthers add even more defense after their all-defensive draft and signed former New York Giants first-round pick and Saints cornerback Eli Apple. And as well as Eagles and Buccaneers have made contract offers to former Atlanta running back Devontae Freeman. And lastly, Eagles' Deshaun Jackson spoke up about maybe allowing more players to be mic'd up more, something that's been in conversation. Since fans won't be able to be in the stadium, instead of pumping crowd noise, he thinks it would be a good idea for more players to be mic'd up so fans can get an idea what happens between the white lines.
I think that'd be pretty cool.
That would be pretty cool, like just to see like the competitiveness and what's going on. We hear a little bit mic'd up, but to have more of that,
Yeah.
I feel like that's the right way to go. But that wraps it up for our Under the Radar news. Today, I would like to welcome a special guest, Bayhawks' previous head coach. He was very successful, over 745 winning percentage, 3 conference championships, and 2 Coach of the Year awards. He recently, last year, stepped down to get more involved as his role as Director of Multicultural Affairs. And his goal is to bridge diversity gap around the Bristol campus. Hello, Rob. Rob Delaleu, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I thank you guys for having me during this tough time. Hopefully we can have more little, discussions like this to kind of bring more people together that may identify a little differently, but, we can kind of really start bridging some of these gaps and showing that there's nothing but love. Every time that you need something, I'm there, and vice versa. So I'm glad to be here today with you guys.
We really appreciate that, Rob, and we really appreciate all you've been doing.
Yes, we do.
Around the community and around Bristol's campus of, bringing people together and speaking out for people. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Well, we're going to start off by with a trivia, new segment we have here, trivia question. Who was the first player to rush over 1,000 yards in a season? I'm going to let you guess, and I will tell you the answer at the end of the show. You have Joe Perry, Jim Brown, Beatty Feathers, and Steve Van Burn.
So this is bad, right? I consider myself a sports enthusiast, and I also am very, I think I'm a sports almanac. And 3 of the names that you gave me, I have no idea who they are.
Don't feel bad. The running backs don't get no love anyway, so.
They should get love, but I'm really, from like mid 1970s up, I think I'm good. But before that, I'm probably shaky. All right, so it can't be Jim Brown because somebody had to have rushed for 1,000 yards before Jim Brown, although he was unreal. I'm gonna go with the Perry guy there. That's my answer. So you
Okay.
let me.
Joe Perry?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right,
Let me.
we'll let you know at the end of the
Okay.
show. First, we want to personally highlight players that there's been a lot of players in the sports world, coaches, teams who came out, are either protesting, speaking out on the current issues, or donating, or all of the above. Personally, we would like to highlight some of the players, athletes, or coaches who took action and personally touch us. So I'll start. Jaylen Brown, the Boston Celtics. Earlier in the week, he drove 15 hours from Boston to Atlanta to start a peaceful protest walk. He's been far beyond his years since he entered the league. He's always been active. He's always been speaking out, and this time is no different. He's speaking in social media. He's informing people, educating people. He's sharing information, and then he goes out his way to start a protest. And also, he's the vice president of the National Players Association. So he has always been involved in the community, and I really respect that. It's inspiring to see.
And for me, I have someone that people may not tend to like, Floyd Mayweather. He is someone that one of the most paid athletes in the world ever. And he's using his money to help pay for all 4 funerals for George Floyd in 4 different states, which I find very touching, honestly, because in this time, you can donate and help out, and he's speaking out to help what's going on. And paying for those funerals is honestly a good use of the money he has, and he's doing more for the community than some people are. So I just think he gets a bad rap, which he's done things in life that he regrets, but that's just a one step towards redemption, and he's helping out speak in the community.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. I love those 2 stories because those are not stories you hear. Unfortunately, the only thing that you do hear about people and athletes a lot of time are the negatives, and you don't hear about the positive components. So for me, I have 2, but I don't know if I can choose one or the other because I think their platforms are a little different. One, which is an obvious one that you see who uses his platform a lot that goes under scrutiny and criticism, is LeBron James. I think him just as a leader, as an individual who helps out his community, his friends, with countless charities. And then when incidents like Kaepernick or Eric Gardner or incidents like George Floyd, he's not one to be shy. He's letting the world know how he feels, even though that he's probably the most recognized athlete right now in the world. And that's not easy to do. And there's a lot of pushback because there's a lot of individuals who don't like him. And I think people who love sports, but they may stand in a certain line, whether that be a political view or racial view, don't like that he is forward thinking like that. He's absolutely one. And the other person is Greg Popovich. And I know I picked 2 people in sports. I probably could have gone with Kaepernick and Serena Williams, but I wanted to kind of identify individuals like Greg Popovich and Steve Kerr that identify as white male, but they understand some of the privileges that they may have being in their position, but they speak out, and they've spoken out against Greg Popovich, especially has spoken out against the president on certain things that he didn't agree with. He didn't keep quiet. He doesn't think about marketing. He's there for people. I don't know if you guys are sports enthusiasts. The conversation he had with Craig Sager live, when and Craig Sager's son, that stuff is powerful. He understands the difference between the actual sport and the economics of sport and humanity. And I admire Popovich for doing some of those things because I think it's so easy in his position to just sit back and be quiet and not get not get yourself dirty in all of the nonsense that's going on. And he's been adamant. He hired the first woman coach. Now he has his former players on the staff. He speaks up against racial inequality and you love to see that. We need more individuals that are allies like that when they are in position of power.
For sure. And those are 2 great choices. LeBron especially. I know as a Celtics fan, I don't always love him on the court, but I love what he does off the court, especially with the school. I mean, I have tremendous respect for LeBron James and Greg Popovich, who's always going to speak out, which, like you said, we definitely need from everybody.
Absolutely.
So our first segment we're going to get into is how important is it for athletes, coaches, teams, etc., that we just mentioned? Like, how important is it for them to use their platform to speak out? Because there's a lot of people who criticize and sports and politics, but it's more deeper than that. And then also, how can they use their platform to make change?
The sports platform is important, and I think a lot of times what happens outside of the lines of whatever court or field you're playing on, I think individuals believe that it's, you should just play your sport and shut up, that you're just an entertainer. And it's very oppressive to think that. We have to understand that sports, there was commercials back in the day with Charles Barkley said he's not a role model, that parents and teachers are. I get that, and I understand that. But you are essentially, right? Because you're in a position of power. Some households don't have men or women raising them, and that athlete is someone that people can resonate with, however they identify. They can see themselves in that athlete. It doesn't necessarily mean they'll be as good as an athlete as that person, but there are different things. There's a social responsibility we have, whether it's our attitude, our approach, our political opinion, how we impact and influence our communities. These things are huge. And I think, protesting and using their platforms are important. And you can't, as long as it's peaceful and it's done in great taste, I see that it needs to happen. The problem is people are never satisfied, right? So you can be a peaceful protester and not satisfied with being a peaceful protester. You take a seat, it's not good. You take a knee, it's not good. You stand with your hand in the air, it's not good. If you do it after a game, it's not good. If you do it before a game, it's not good. It's just like people are always going to criticize. And I think the platforms are important, especially for those higher level athletes that are professional, but with the understanding that economics does have something to do with it. So it's hard at particular times to do it. So you have to kind of really weigh that in, because you are under contract and it is somebody else's business that you could affect. So you have to really be able to be nimble and able to move. But if you are an athlete, you should be able to utilize yourself in order to help impact the world, because we need leaders to do that. And it doesn't take one leader. And I think that's another issue, and that's a whole nother thing, that we always need one leader to kind of take us somewhere. And that's, I think, the wrong method. We're not sheep. We are individuals. We have our own identities. We have our beliefs, and we can influence our circles, which I'll get into a little later on. And that is important than just saying, well, the only person that can speak on this is the president or vice president of the United States. That's nonsense. We need to be able to influence where we can. We have power where we can and do things, as long as it's for the greater good of the American people.
Most definitely, especially as they say in the NBA, the banana boat crew: Chris Paul, Dwayne Wade, Carmelo Anthony, LeBron James. They stand together as a unity, and they help push positive into that everywhere. Basically, they're all donating to charities, setting up schools like LeBron did, and they're just, some of them, they're role models to a bunch of kids out there right now that look up to them. So them using their platform is showing these kids they can speak out as well. It's good to do that. Protest for what you need, the right.
Absolutely. It is our constitutional right to be able to protest or
Exactly.
to disagree. That's what makes America beautiful. But there's people that want to take that away, and they feel that, if you're a journalist, maybe you can speak on it, or if you're in politics, you can speak on it. But the rest of you guys, just settle there, and only time you can speak is during voting time. And I just don't get that. And if these athletes want to take their time and dedicate time to help our youth, to help people to change this world, then what's the problem? There shouldn't be a problem.
For sure. You guys both bring up great points. And a couple things I want to touch on is, one, with the role model point, we forget, we see people on a screen and they kind of like, they have these amazing capabilities, and we forgot they're human too. People are human, and every person deserves a voice. Every person deserves to take a stance. So the whole shut up and not have an opinion, I feel like that should discredit you immediately. I feel like with protests though, I don't get this. Everyone wants to tell someone how to fight for a cause that maybe they don't understand or they don't feel, and or they have to do a certain way. No, you can't do it this way, can't do it this way. When is protest ever supposed to be something that everybody agrees and everyone's happy with? That's what the point of protest is, to upset people, to get people to listen, and to, spark, initiative. So I don't really understand why people feel like protest should be this thing, a certain little thing where you have to follow these guidelines and follow these rules. That's not what protest is. What I would like to see from platforms is, I know athletes always been involved, back from, Bill Russell and Muhammad Ali, Jackie Robinson, and even further. But I would like to see more of like the team owners, and people in that position where they have a lot of power and money, not just to put a PR statement out. I would like to see them, like be more involved, make videos, be in the protest with us, talk, just be more involved. I'm kind of sick of seeing this, PR letter statement from everybody. I feel like that's not enough. I feel like people put that out and a couple months later we're here again, nothing really changes. I want them to be part of the change and push forward of what's next, what can we do to bring the change.
You make up a great point there, and that's the part of having actionable items. Taking action versus just making a statement or staying quiet. However you can influence, you can do that. Not everyone's going to be able to be vocal and stand in front of millions of cameras and say something. I get that. But influence that change in spaces that you can. So maybe if you're an owner and you're helping maybe someone who wants to be vocal and you're helping support them with some finances that they're able to take time and dedicate towards something. Or, if maybe you are an owner that will say, I stand with these people, but we also have to understand that it is a business and there's an economics behind it. So a lot of times you don't hear them say anything because they're scared of the other side's reaction. And a lot of these owners are part of the 1%. And with that 1% controls 95% of our economy. So the people that they're in business rooms with really don't think the way we think. We're smaller people. We only influence a small circle. So their way is a lot different, and their views are a lot different. And it's unfortunate. So that's something that they battle with. So I can't really speak up for them that they can do something so easy. But is there other ways that they can influence change without maybe ruffling a bunch of feathers? And now you got a bunch of these people in power going after each other, which can cause a harm to us as people because they do control so much of the economy.
Sure. And before we go on to the next thing, I just wish we can get to a point where we care more about for like humans than people care for like money, or
Yeah.
it's sad. But for the next topic, on a positive note, you're like I said in the beginning, you bring a lot of change, you bring a lot of influence. A lot of former players of yours say how much you impact their lives, students around the campus. Advocate for students and bring in equality to not just the campus but the Bristol area. Can you maybe tell us like what incident specifically is what motivated you? Because I feel like there's always something that like sparked the initiative that made you want to be a head coach of a basketball team, and also now Director of Multicultural Center.
I found basketball as a peacemaker for me because there's a lot going on. Growing up in a single parent home, my mother did everything that she could in order to keep me off the streets and do things. And she had a wish that I would go to college. And being a first generation, we had no game plan or game book, because no one in our family went to college, right? So it was one of those things where you had to sit there and figure out. I was becoming pretty good at sports. So basketball was a thing. So I just picked it up late and didn't think anything of it. Next thing you know, I got an opportunity to play college ball. And then as I'm playing college ball, high school, college, I realized there are coaches, and the coaches didn't look like me. They didn't have the same views I did. A couple of them cared, a couple of them really didn't. And to me, I saw the struggles that we went through. I went through struggles. I was never asked how you're doing. I was never asked about my life. It was almost used as a platform, get their wins and losses, for them to look good and for them to make the school look good. But then what happened to the students after that, right? They like us, and then you graduate and then they're done. So it always kind of bothered me. And I did have one coach when I was in JUCO. He really, cared for me. He had a lot going on in his life, but he trusted a lot in me. And I kind of grew on him, and he grew on me. And he gave me my first coaching opportunity. As that happened, I always said, I want to be a coach and I want to influence change. And from there, I coached at Dean College, Bridgewater State College, and then I was at the high school level for X amount of years. And then the Bristol job opened up. My influence to get there was to athletes that look like me, that are Black and African American and Latinx males, to really look at, to be a mentor, to be a leader, to kind of get us from point A to Z. So I end up trying to figure out systems and how we can create systems to be a positive change, and how to influence through our study habits and influence through our leadership, holding each other accountable and responsible. So try to really figure all that out. But the most important part of the system, you can write it down on paper, is caring and loving. And I check on my guys all the time, still to this day. I don't coach them, but I still, how you doing? Happy birthday, Merry Christmas, Merry whatever it is. I'm letting them know, right? Because it's a unit where you're sacrificing blood, sweat, and tear for a school and for me as a person, and you're believing in me. And then all of a sudden you graduate, or you move on and we don't speak anymore. Like, no, like, we're a family, and that's how my approach is. And after we were winning a bunch of games, we end up we're becoming nationally ranked, and players are all Americans, and great things are happening. But
Number 4.
yeah, number 4, and all the way up to number 4 in the country, which actually was, think about it, the 2 teams were tied for 4, so that means we're really in the 3rd spot, which was pretty cool. All Americans, my guys are traveling around the country, they're getting scholarships. All these things are great, and it's an opportunity. But it wasn't sitting right with me, because I'm like, I think I'm just part of a system of just moving Black men and Latinx men into a space of, all right, let's play ball, let's do this. And then after that, it's like, what's next? I want to influence that. What's next? I have the athletic background. I have the source of understanding, but what's next? And how do we get from point A, like I said, to point Z? I felt as coaching and then running the centers, being the director of the center, I was getting our athletes from point A to maybe like point W, where's the rest, and I think I want to be able to connect all of that. Director of Multicultural Affairs position opened up, which is now I can influence policy, procedures. There's so many pieces that equity and inclusion and all that can influence, that I did not have the ability to do that when I'm averaging, I'm in bed by 3 o'clock in the morning to wake up to drop my son off to school at 7 and doing it. And I'm like, something has to break. And unfortunately, it was the coaching part and the athletic piece, but I'm still going to be involved, and I'm connecting with athletes, doing things that I'm still influencing change in my circle. I just don't get the pleasure of being a coach and getting the wins and losses, but losing that, I'm still going to get a greater win if I'm able to get to where I need to be and create what I need to create.
How are you currently using your platform as director to help bring change going on with the recent situation?
So the recent situation is pretty gruesome. And
well, it's not recent. It's been happening for.
And that's where my point is getting to. When I was younger, I was held at gunpoint twice by police officers. Okay, once and once where I was on the ground and a gun pointed to my back of my neck area, and both times I was in the right of being where I needed to be. I wasn't causing problem, wasn't causing havoc. I just fit the description. One time they said the description was a 6-foot Black man. That was the description. It was nothing more detailed, but that was just what it was. And I was at a school party and I was 15. Like, not a school party, like at a person's house. I was at the school. They didn't believe I went to the school because it was a private school. You see what I'm saying? So these things resonate with me, and it doesn't just happen to me. It happens to so many out there. And then now I'm raising a teenage son. I'm scared to death of that. And so I'm fighting for him. I fight for our students and students that I've coached. And it's so much bigger. Like when I say I love my student athletes, I love my student athletes. and I love my son unconditionally. Like, I have to make sure that I'm in a position that I can influence some change, right? So how do I do that? Do I just want a paycheck, or do I really want to create a legacy and influence change in my circle? So my circle was created. I'm like, so I called up the president. I sent an email, and she was on board. She said, let's do this. Let's rock. Let's make it happen. Created a webpage, a pledge to make sure that we're standing not with all people. And we didn't say people of color, multicultural. We said Black and African American people, that we stand with them, because there's that intent. We'll get to the everybody matters. We'll get to the multicultural. We'll get to all of that. But if something has happened and you're hurting, if Megan is hurting, I'm going to make sure that I'm doing something to help Megan. You see what I'm saying? I'm not going to sit there and say, well, Megan, you're hurting, but I'm hurting too.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, what does that mean? Like, no,
Yeah.
Megan needs me, so I'm there for Megan. I'm
Exactly.
not there. I'm not going to be there for someone else. Like, it just does not make sense to me that why people look for excuses to dehumanize the efforts that are happening. And then there's a link that's attached that goes to our open forum. The open forum will start a series of social justice work. We talk about action, right? So how many times have we talked about peace and all these things, but nothing happens? At the end of it, we're sending out actionable items. So we're sending out a list of things, from books that you can read to help yourself, from resources that you can utilize to help yourself, and then we also launching our series of social justice workshops, panels. And those panels will have things like, some of the topics will be like race and criminal justice, race and economic justice, race and equity in education, race and policing. These are things that are race and ability, because these are all things that are there that we really need, and then I have, race and inequity education. I think I'd said that, but those are all pieces that are important for people to know and know about. But we're not going to just talk about it. I'm going to bring people in, police officers, civil rights attorneys, people that are that have right points of view on the right side, people that have points of view on the left side, Black, white, Spanish, Asian, does not matter, various cultures. We want to really get people involved and create items. And then we're looking for our educators to learn. We want our educators to know that it's not just about the subject, you're teaching the student, and how we can be a little bit more encompassing in doing that.
I have a quick question going on this. Like, earlier we were talking about how certain players have the platform to stand that, like, talk out, but they can't because of who they work for and they don't really support it. How does it feel to have the support from the president to be able to go out and make this change?
President of the college.
That's a great question, and that's influence. See, our president, she cannot speak for me, right? Or my students that look like me or have been in that experience. And a lot of times you see people that say they're allies. Well, I'm an ally, I do this, and then you ask them, like, I need to do this. I need to take charge of here. I want this position. And then you get told no. So are you really an ally if every time we ask for something, you're telling me no? How do you, so you're basically letting me down easier is how they approach. With this president, she does not do that. I ask for something, and we say, what's the solution? How do we get there? See, I can influence a lot of people. I have the following that maybe she does not have. But I cannot get that going if she doesn't give me the autonomy or that leverage in order to do that. And by her just stating, like, go ahead, I have your back. And then she called other departments, like, help Rob out right now. We need to get this. So I can't tell you the amount of people that are calling me crying, that saying, how can I don't know what to do. Like, I'm a white man, woman. I don't know what to do. I stand with you, Rob. I trust you. I know this is passionate work. This is real. And I'm like, yes, let's go. So I know I can lead that piece. But in order for me to do that, I needed that cooperation. So if you're a president out there of a school, or if you're a person that can influence change and give those in those departments or those areas the autonomy to do that, it doesn't cost much. All it takes is getting the other departments behind it, showing that we really care, and being very intent behind it. Create items that are going to change the world. Like, you can't sit there and just talk about it and then it's done, and then 4 years from now, we see another heinous act, and then now we're all standing up again. That just doesn't make sense to me. We gotta create change where we can in our areas.
Absolutely. And thank you for all you do and what you are doing. And real quick, just because we're filming this on Wednesday and we usually put it out on Saturday. So for those who are not part of the forum and stuff, how can they find you? How can they get involved? How can they get to the resources that you are talking about in discussions?
Yeah, so there's a couple things that we can do. First of all, we are recording the forum, so they'll be able to see the first part of the forum. So I'll have that captioned and ready to go probably in like a couple of weeks. If you want a copy, just email me. It's Robert, Robert .Delaleu, DELALEU @bristolcc.edu, and we'll be able to send that video to you. If you want resources to help or tactics on what you can do in times like this, I will also put something together. They are my perspective. There's some national stuff. Some of them are my perspective, but I want to give as many tactics that we can produce. And then anytime you need me, if someone is just lost and they want to, I don't care if you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, or if you are a, person just teaching your class, or if you're a parent at home, you want help on what to do, let's sit down, let's chat, let's have a talk. I don't have all the answers, but at least I can kind of give you things that have worked for me, and how we can really, show real true brotherhood and true love. Like that's important. So yeah, anyone who's looking to be involved, let me know. Coaches, if you want to know, you got players that don't look like you, you're struggling, you love the game of basketball, and understand that there's people that coach and there's people that for wins and losses, and there's people that coach because they love their players and they love to do it. I just was lucky enough to be around a bunch of student athletes that got me a lot of publicity because we were winning. But I think that love that we showed for each other was part of the reason. So we have tactics on how to make them successful and get them to graduation, which is very, very important because, unfortunately for men, everyone thinks that they're going to go make money and play professional sports. And unfortunately, that's not the case. So we need to, like I said, we need to understand if you're coaching how to get them from A to Z, not A to W, not A to P. I don't know, whatever letter you get them to, we need to know we got to get from start to finish. That's what's important.
For sure.
And for all the viewers out there, we're going to make sure to put all this information in the bio along with the email that you can reach at any point in time.
And to wrap up our show, back to that trivia question now, it was who was the first player to rush for over 1,000 yards in NFL in a season? And the answer was B.D. Feathers.
Yeah.
Should have just went with those strange names.
Yeah, I was like, you said it. I'm like, I don't know. I had no idea who any of them was. So, B Feathers played for who?
B Feathers played for. That's a great question. We will answer that on next episode.
I got that. He played for the Chicago Bears.
Oh, okay.
Oh, wow. All right, nice.
And this is around like when the NFL first started.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
the up and coming days. So many people might not know who he is.
Yeah.
That's back when the one game was more.
Yeah, never heard of B Feathers ever. So.
Hey, but now we know him. And first, I want to thank you, Rob Delaleu, so much for coming on and speaking and just doing all the change you do. Hopefully, for the viewers out there, it inspires you. You can take action. You can be part of the change. And we need change. We need change, and we need it today.
Yeah, and I will. I thank the two of you, and you may not realize it, but you are part of the change. See. And if it's influencing one person at a time, you guys have given me a little bit of platform to speak. And by you just putting this out there, it might touch somebody, it might reach somebody. We don't know. I think we're all in a world of just likes, and that's all we wanted. We want views and likes because that gets us to where we need to be. And we have to start understanding that that's not what it's about. What it's about is individuals like you. You guys grew up differently than me. We look different. But we have that same heart, and you allowing me to do this is huge. Just to speak on it, because I think there's somebody that might need to hear this. I don't preach just to preach. This is no monetary gain for me. This is real stuff. This is real life. This is real people that we care about. I know you guys care about sports and you care about people. And there are ways that we can merge the two in order to create positive change. It doesn't have to be about wins and losses and debates. All that stuff is fun. But at the end of the day, when we take off that uniform, we are who we are. And I appreciate you guys keep making change as students and students with platforms, and keep doing that because you're the change. Eventually, one generation leaves, and now you guys are the ones that are leading it. So I thank you. Keep doing it, and we'll get there hopefully, and we can influence our circles. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you very much.
I appreciate
Thank you again for joining us today.
All right.
Thank
Thank
you
you
guys.
guys for tuning in. And again, to find any of the resources we talked about in this episode, you can look in the bio. Thank you.